Hello everyone. So today I'm uploading a little bit of a different type of video. This is a lecture that I gave for my study group. What I've been really enjoying are doing these sort of casual lectures. People can ask a bunch of questions and we can try to not get too distracted and get too off topic. In this particular case, I want to talk about how I look at the opening in terms of like what I think are the basics of the opening, what you're actually trying to accomplish. And so I hope that is very helpful. If you would like to join the study group yourself or would like to sign up for anything else, you should definitely head on over to my Patreon. We're getting quite a few new people recently, and it's been a lot of fun. This next study group is actually going to be us playing some games, and I'll be reviewing them afterwards. So over here, we can see some of the membership options we have. We have just the study group. We have our video review pack, an SGF review pack. You need to go over here now. Monthly lessons, part-time student, which would be 2 lessons per month, and full-time student, which is a lesson every single week. I am really enjoying doing this, and I really hope I can help you out. What I really want, though, is more people will join this study group so we make it as big as we possibly can. If I can, then maybe I'll be able to expand it in some way, like maybe making it meet 2 times a week, or maybe adding on another person to help me work through it. Anyway, I hope you guys end up enjoying this lecture. All right, so the topic of the lecture this time is just going to be opening basics. I think people teach it in a slightly different way than what I like to teach, which is why I wanted to make this potentially into a video as well for YouTube in general. I might post this one. And that's because I think what most people sort of talk about is the opening in regards to like, you just play on the widest side of the board. There's enclosures and extensions, and that's sort of it. Like they don't really go into too much detail, maybe like something about urgent points every so often, but I think it's good to sort of understand why we play all of these moves. And I think that really helps in figuring it out for yourself in actual games. So one of my favorite books in the opening is actually Fundamental Principles of Go by Yulin Yang. Even though it has other aspects to it, there's one section I thought was extremely useful, which is the idea of understanding the first 4 moves of the game, which you would think that we understand that pretty well, but I feel like people don't actually understand it. So let's get into how that works here. So with the first 4 moves, what I mean is, what do you actually want to accomplish with like the 4-4 point? I talked about this a little bit in my lecture on, I think it was handling the 4-4 point. Was it written before or after AI? Opening theory changed a lot. Actually, opening theory did not change. Joseki changed, which is a little bit different. Opening theory is actually the same. It's kind of interesting. That's why I want to talk about it from this perspective. The 4-4 point, it has some stuff that it really wants to do, but it's not geared in any specific direction. So like it wants to move out towards the top side or the right side of the board here. It doesn't care which direction it goes in though, which is one of the benefits of the 4-4 point. It's very flexible. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, Felix. But there is a proper move order that you really want to focus on. If we're just playing the 4-4, we want to enclose or extend first. But then after we have the enclosure or extension, we then need to go have an enclosure to match it. If we do the enclosure first, we then need to extend, right? That sort of idea. And there's still more to it. So this is like you have to choose which direction you want to go in, and then you enclose to make it a little bit more efficient. And then you can actually extend one more time. There's like the secondary direction that you can move in. And then the very last thing is closing off the corner completely. This sort of like the moves that you're trying to accomplish here. With the 4-4, there's a lot of options, but it's sort of in a specific order. So extending, enclosing, extending again, and then finishing off the corner. This is actually really important for how we actually play the opening. What AI has told us is that we have more options than we thought before, but that's why I said that the theory hasn't really changed. We just have more options. Why second extension before closing off? This is about the efficiency, right? We want to try to build a very large area. If we have the second extension first, and then they try to invade, they're just under severe attack because there's nowhere that they can run to. So it's not too big of a deal to sort of handle this sort of situation. But often in a real game, you can't get all of these extensions, which is why you don't really see it too often. So that's sort of how it is with the 4-4 point here. You want some sort of extension. If you're playing the 4-4, your goal is often to have a little bit more of an influence. So you extend towards the side first, usually, and then you want to enclose, but it can be in either order. You can enclose and then extend if you want to. And it's the same for the 3-4. The 3-4 actually is a little bit more direct. So when we play the 3-4 point, we have a very specific direction of play. You always want to enclose the corner first, and then extend along the side, and then extend along the top. So we're extending along the side first because this is where we're making a more boxy formation. And then the top is last because this is a much more flat, boxy formation. It's just not as tall as the other one. With the 4-4, what's the purpose of the enclosure if it doesn't guarantee the corner? Similar question for 3-4, I guess. 3-4, it does, for the most part, guarantee the corner. Like this enclosure, there's no way for your opponent to get rid of the points in this enclosure right now. They need stones on both sides, and then they can get rid of the points in the corner. So it's a really strong formation. So it's similar for the 4-4. If we have the enclosure for the 4-4, then when they come in to invade, this is actually supposed to just be a ko. But if they go in to invade without the enclosure, it's just alive right away. Right? If we have like an extension instead, it's just alive. Yeah. So the enclosures are to not necessarily secure the corner, but to make the group strong, which is a different way to think about it. And so if you like a more territorial approach, then enclosing the corner is often the better idea, because it's going to be harder for them to do anything about it. And if you like more influence, then expanding first is a good idea. But yeah, if we go back to the 3-4 though, 3-4, there we go. And we go to not white moves, but there we go. We have this, then this, here we go. But there is a very specific order of moves for the 3-4 point. We want to enclose first. Extending first is not considered slow. We just approach instead of extend, but the approach is considered an extension a lot of the time. But we'll talk about that a little bit here. We're talking about in isolation right now. What is it that you actually want with these moves? We're not talking about slow, fast, anything. We're not talking about if these moves should be played. We're only talking about what the corner move is actually wanting to accomplish. So the 3-4 corner move is wanting to enclose first, then extend along the top. Like, yeah, so 1, 2, and then 3. That's the order of moves. This is the important part, is figuring out the order of moves here. And then for the 4-4, if I can scroll back up here, the order of moves was a little bit different. You usually want to extend along the side first, and then enclose, then take another side extension, and then finish off the corner. Sort of the last thing you do. Just to point it out, it actually is the same for 5-4 points and 3-5 points. Something like this. The thing you're supposed to do first is enclose the corner, then extend, then extend. That's actually how you're supposed to play those moves. But people often use them for trick plays or trying to get your opponent to do something specific to give you a lot of influence. But that is sort of the purpose of those moves as well. Yeah, it's the same for this one too, yeah. You're supposed to take the corner first, then extend, and extend. Something you may also notice, I'm doing 5 space extensions. We do 5 space extensions because it's harder to live in. That's like the standard one. This is the sort of stuff that the AI has changed. Instead of playing 5 space extensions, the AI sometimes does a 6 space extension. Or instead of playing certain types of enclosures, I see that you play, yeah. So instead of playing certain types of enclosures, they do wider enclosures and stuff like that. But those are like little tiny details that are more so related to Joseki than they are related to actual opening theory. Because even with the different enclosure, with the 3-4, like if we do the really high one here, we still want the same things. We still want to expand along the top first because we're still trying to build this giant box here. That's the goal. And then we still want to expand along the side next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish. So around here somewhere. But what AI does, because they like to focus a little bit more on the corner, instead of expanding this far, they tend to play like a move like this one. But it's the same idea. We're still extending to the right side of the board after we've taken the extension on the top side. Another thing that like the AI showed us was like, instead of playing move at 4, we'll move it over 1. So instead of there, we put it here. This is, as I said, this is more so a change in Joseki, but it's still the same move, still the same idea. So I want to make sure I mention those small differences real quick. Can white live there? It actually is going to be very difficult for white to live if black already has these stones on the outside, because the outside strength is what matters for living in the corner here. Black can always play in a way that makes it very difficult for white to live. And so it just depends on how much strength there is on the outside. And there's a lot of other options too. Like there's the no easy covariation, I guess. Yeah, it's not as simple. And even if we play this one, we might be able to do some other sorts of moves depending on how strong we are on the outside, like I mentioned before. Or even if they do this one, we can even poke in here or extend down. We have a lot of options if we're strong enough on the outside, which is why it's generally okay to play like the wider extension here. But I still play this one because it's just simpler for me. I still do this one. Yeah, so I think that this actually covers what I consider to be the basics of the opening, kind of interestingly. The order of moves that we're playing here is what matters the most. We're extending if we have a 4-4, and then we're enclosing next, and then we're extending again, and then we're finishing off the area. And then, as I said, with the 3-4 down here somewhere, same idea. Understanding this tells you everything you need to know. Surprise, as I said, kind of surprised me when I thought about it more. This is actually all you need to know when it comes to the order of moves. And we'll show some examples there. The next thing you need to know is which one is more efficient, because that's actually what we're looking for with these sort of variations. Which one's the more efficient one? Can the enclosure be exchanged for the extension to one side? Well, let's talk about that for just real quick. If we go back here, are you saying, can we do this instead? Or we take 2 extensions? I had the same question. Okay. R14 first, then K16? Yeah. You can do that in any order you want. Yeah. You can do the enclosure first and then extend, or extend first. The reason why I say the extension first is because with 4-4, you generally want to move out faster. And if you're wanting to enclose, a 3-4 is generally a better idea. What this generally gets to, let me refresh the page real quick. What this really comes to is, like if they have a move here, instead of enclosing this direction, often we're approaching instead, and this is going to be our extension. If they really try to get rid of the extension, that's fine. But if they're just backing off and we play normal Joseki stuff, this is like an old school one. Now this is technically our extension from the top side, from our top right corner. Yeah, so we'll get into that for sure, a little bit more. But before we do that one, before we talk about that too much, as I said, we do want to make sure we know which one's the more efficient formation out of these two, the 4-4 and then this 3-4. It actually is, as I was saying, it actually is easy to know which one's more efficient. It is the one that has fewer stones. The 3-4 with the 2 extensions is only 4 stones, and the 4-4 with all the extensions is 5 stones instead. So the fewer amount of stones, the more efficient the formation. If we think of it from that perspective, that means we don't want to let our opponent... Yeah, it takes 2, because it takes the 2 stones to secure the corner from the 4-4, exactly. And so we don't want to let our opponent have a very efficient formation. So our job often is to prevent our opponent from doing something while also trying to get this for ourselves. That's sort of the goal here. We want to prevent them and try to get something. Yeah. The trade-off is rigid efficient versus flexible and less efficient. Yeah. The flexibility is what makes it really nice, because black doesn't have to play this direction. They could also play the other direction, right? They could be going to this side first, then this enclosure, then over here, and then over here. So it could be either direction that they move to, which is what makes the 4-4 really nice. What we're trying to do, I guess, is we're trying to prevent that efficient formation. So if we have this with the extension, that's why we have the get rid of a corner enclosure when they extend. So let me go back to here, the actual use a move. There we go. Oh, I can't click. Still can't click. Sorry, Felix. We want to prevent the enclosure. All right, they have this extension, so we want to prevent the enclosure. That's why we would approach here to make sure they can't get that very efficient formation. As the same if they have the enclosure first. If they do the enclosure here, we often want to try to prevent that extension next. Because if they do an extension like here, this is not as efficient. This is smaller than if they extended 2 more spaces to where the white move is. As I said, this is very basic, but I think really understanding that will be very helpful. Now for the 4-4, because it's so flexible, you can do it in any direction you want to, but with the 3-4, go back down here to wherever that is. If white or if black extends to the side first instead of enclosing the corner, now this approach is really good because we're actually taking the more efficient move away from them. Because taking the corner first is the most efficient, or the first thing that you should do, and then you extend. So with the 3-4, it's more rigid here. Now, you do have to sometimes make compromises, of course. Decide what you think is a little easier to handle. Decide what you like more. But if we're being very strict, this is considered to be better for white. Even with this attached underneath Joseki. So if we go back here. Since I already mentioned efficiency, we should also talk about the 3-3 point really quick. Because the 3-3 point is extremely efficient at just taking the corner, but it just doesn't do anything else. And that's the problem with it. But that also means you can just leave it alone for the rest of the game. With the 3-3 point, it's kind of like the 4-4, which you could technically extend along the sides, right? And you could technically enclose. The corner is already solid, so playing another move here is only growing points. That's all it's doing, versus making a stronger formation. But we're already a strong formation with this first move. So there's no need to play another move, which is a little bit different from the 3-4, where if we don't play the other move, this approach is technically making the stone in the corner a little bit weaker. Now, it's not weak like gonna die, but it's not as secure as a 3-3 point, technically. So for the 3-3, you could play this one and expand, but usually you just leave this alone forever, and you just wait for your opponent to do something. So that's why some people like the 3-3, because you just don't touch it. I've tried it a few times, and when you just decide to ignore it for the whole game, that actually makes it very useful. You just have to deal with a lot of influence a lot of the time. And I don't like it when my opponent gets a lot of influence. I'm a very influence-oriented player, so I would prefer a 4-4 or the 3-4. All right, so if we go back and we just look at standard sort of opening thing that people play often. It's like 1-3-4, 1-4-4, and then 2-4-4s. We don't want to enclose a 4-4 corner first. Like I said, it's more efficient for white to enclose their corner, so we don't want to enclose our corner. Because this is technically black doing something that's less efficient, but the trade-off in this case is that black's going to get the extension next. So that doesn't mean that these moves are now bad. It doesn't mean these are bad at all. We're just focused on the sort of efficient ideas. That's why we often see people approach instead. They'll approach this corner first and then move on. You approach high or low, it doesn't really matter. Let's just finish this off here. So now that we've approached, we don't have any more 3-4 points. And so now our goal is to try to make the most of the situation with our 4-4 points, right? So what is the problem here? Well, white in the bottom left corner can no longer extend this direction because there's a stone already there, which means white is now limited to only extending in one direction. So instead of approaching from like the inside over here, where if black just backs off and we do a nice simple move here, and black gets to approach in the bottom, this white stone in the bottom left is not a very efficient 4-4 point because it is no longer being used in the way that you're trying to use them, right? We wanted to extend to one side. We wanted to get an enclosure with an extension. We wanted to get something like that. But because we approached from the inside, on the right side here, because we approached over here, that makes it so that the stone in the bottom left is not very useful anymore. We'd rather have it be a different stone, like a 3-3 point would look better here now. So instead of approaching from that inside area, often what we'll do is we'll approach from this bottom side. Now, black can force the position if they really want to by like pincering. They can really force the bottom left corner to be not very efficient. But by pincering, we're getting more territory, so it's just a trade-off for both sides. Just to show it real quick. I guess they were able to make this less efficient, but we got to take a nice big corner, so we're okay with that sort of thing. If you're really, really worried about it, though, you could just, or approach, like, enclose, because you're not going to be able to extend on the left side. You can only enclose that direction, yeah. In pro games, obviously, a single move to approach an opponent's 4-4. Then Tanuki. Can that be considered a modern extension from the opposite corner of my own color? White 0-3, and then black R6, and then white plays away. You could consider that to be something like that if you really want to. So this one, we consider that to be some sort of extension. Maybe if you go back here to play this enclosure. I think sometimes you might see this sometimes, but you could consider this sort of idea. And it is kind of an extension, but what you're sort of asking for a fight. So like we know the bottom left is not going to be very efficient. So now we're asking for this sort of fight here to happen. And we're at least going to be able to turn that bottom left into some sort of territory while fighting. So it's like that's more like a tactic or a strategy. Whatever you want to call it. Strategy here. Yeah. And I would say like if they approached and then black did this one, this would be sort of like choosing a Joseki. Yeah, part of the fight, they get the extension. Just not as efficient, but they get an extension and it's a fight. But I see this sort of thing often too. But this, I would call this sort of like a Joseki idea because there's always like the double approach here. So we back off. Let's say they do this one, then we can double approach. This was just like a Joseki choice on their end. But also another little strategy. Like what if they think the left side was more important, right? So the next idea though, apart from that, like we, with this formation here, is that sometimes we can try to threaten our opponent in order to get something, in order to get that extension and enclosure idea. And that would be like this move, which is why you often see this one. If black plays away, then we're just going to be able to invade and get some sort of profit here. Black should usually still run away, and then we can go back and enclose in some way, whatever way we think is more appropriate here. But you can see that with applying a little bit of pressure, we get some sort of extension plus our enclosure still. Not as nice, but applying pressure is one way of being more efficient too. C7 does not achieve the same thing. So, for example, this Tesuji here, let's say black blocks this way. Now we can connect to the C8 stone. If that's further away, we cannot connect because there's the cut here. Yeah. We have to do something. I have to actually think it through. Instead of doing that, we can just do this one, I guess, the better idea. This is the better way to try to kill. I should have thought about it before I said it. It looked right. It looked right. This one looks more appropriate. Yeah. But if the stone's further away, if we just move that stone one space over, you can see it's already a lot different, and we may not even be able to play this way anymore. If we have Ataris here to make this code bigger, and other sorts of options. Yeah, going close to apply pressure. So if you're trying to enclose the corner, this is something that I really, really advocate, by the way. This I really, really like to focus on. If your goal is to enclose the corner, you enclose the corner. If your goal is to apply pressure, you go all the way to apply pressure. All the way. Always go all the way. You'd never play the move that's in between. Yeah. Now, as you get stronger, you find out that sometimes the in-between move is right, but you should go all the way 99% of the time. Yeah, sometimes it is more useful, but this isn't a pincer. This is a squeezing move. We're trying to apply pressure to the upper left group. And we're trying to make that invasion more severe. For example, the invasion also has more options. If black does this one, we have this into here, Atari, push, double Hane, connect. And black has to go back and capture this stone. If they don't capture, let's say they play their extension here, we have this move here to capture black instead. And if they go to Atari, we just pull back, and now the group only has one eye. Really cool, really cool. But we need that double Hane in order for it to work. So the more you understand the variations, the more you understand why the stones need to be in certain places. So like with this one, we definitely can't have the double Hane after 4 stones. We have to have it at 3 stones. That's why I say a lot of the time, if your goal is to pressure, you pressure. And if your goal is to just enclose or get something else, you enclose. So even with pincers for like approaching here, if our goal is just to sort of like disrupt the bottom side, then you actually play a loose pincer like this one. You go really far. We're just trying to disrupt the bottom side. But if you want to apply more pressure to the stone at 03, then you have to do the tight pincer to apply pressure. This is more of a fighting pincer. So if they jump out, this is going to be more of a fight here. You can even cut sometimes when you have the ladder. Or you can even just push, push, jump. More cutting points. Yeah, so the close pincer is for fighting, and the faraway pincer is for reduction or building from your own area. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have an old video about that. I believe. I don't know how good it is anymore, but I do have an old video about it. Let me see if I can find that real quick. I think it's a. I could probably just type Baduk pincer and it'll probably pop up. Yeah, the key to understanding pincers. Yeah. So now we can go back to this. Yeah. So after pressuring with C8, if black tanukis, should white invade right away? Yeah, I think it all depends. It always depends a little bit, but that is something to think about as well. We do usually want to invade right away because we're making a threat. Yeah, we're making a threat, and so we should follow up on that threat. So the reason we wouldn't invade right away is if we think something else is more urgent. Right? If it's more urgent, then we don't need to worry about that right now. If they approached here, I might not invade right away. I'll probably do something on the bottom first. But you could do kick and jump. Oops, not that. Kick and jump. They make an extension, now I invade. But I do suggest a lot of the time, if you're threatening to do something, then you should do it as soon as possible. Now, other invasions are a little bit different. I feel seen. Yeah. Other invasions are a little bit different. But if you're threatening something, if your goal was to threaten to attack something, and then you just never attack it, then why'd you ever threaten it? You should never have threatened it if you weren't going to follow up. But let's go back here. We're getting almost off track. Yeah. So this is where I was basically talking about the idea of more urgent moves. So like, if we want to try to do something, sometimes it can be nice to leave a threat hanging over your opponent's heads. They feel like they need to go back. Yeah, sort of Damocles idea. In my case, it's because I changed my mind, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, you can't change your mind. Even if you change your mind, you need to usually follow up on your threat anyway. But so here's the thing. If you threaten them, if you purposefully play a move to threaten them, I said you should follow up. But if there is something that they have to defend that you are threatening, that doesn't mean you have to go after it. It is sort of a tricky situation. But if your goal was to threaten that thing, you should continue on with it. If it just happens to be on the board, it's okay to just leave it there. Like it happened naturally, that's fine. That's a separate thing. But even then, you often should just do it. But I do understand what you mean too, Felix, there. I do understand. But anyway, so let's... yeah, so the idea here, though, is the sort of urgent idea. If we're playing a move to threaten our opponent, often it's good, even here, to just answer, because we're protecting our group. We're not letting them get anything special. And this is also applying a little bit of pressure to our opponent now, because we also now have this sort of invasion too. You can, often when there's like a move that's threatening something, you can just defend, and that's usually also just as efficient and just as good as playing the corner stuff or trying to go for those corner formations. But we'll look at some real games here in just a minute here. But I just want to make sure we go back and talk about sort of the order of moves in the opening. The order of moves are all about making sure your opponent can't get efficient formations or trying to get that efficient formation for yourself. If you're playing the 3-4 like this, our goal is to enclose, and we're first going to enclose in the direction that is reducing our opponent. So the side that your opponent is on, we want to enclose that side first if you have that option. And then white doesn't want to enclose a 4-4 point here because another 3-4 enclosure is going to be more efficient. Let's just throw a couple more moves here on the board for white. They still need 2 more moves here to be just as efficient as black. So white is the one who's playing too slowly here. And that's why I also suggest extending along the sides with the 4-4 instead of just trying to do these enclosures, because you're not accomplishing the right goal if that was what you wanted, was just to make territory with it. So that's why we see white often just come in to break up the side, because we're preventing them from getting an efficient formation. And this also goes with the 3-3 point. Something I want to mention with the 3-3, the AI thing that really changed a lot. Like I said, the 4-4 has the option of going in multiple directions. That's the benefit of the 4-4. So when black throws in at the 3-3 point, we're telling them to choose a direction right now. And you don't have any more options in the future. You have to choose right now. I think that actually simplifies the 4-4 quite a lot, which is why the AI ends up liking the 3-3 invasion. Same for right at the very beginning. If we just do all 4-4s, this invasion is forcing a direction, but you're letting your opponent choose, because both directions are fine, right? Blocking this way so that you can approach the top side, or blocking the other way so you can build the left side. Both are perfectly fine. But you have to figure it out right now, and now the opening actually becomes a little bit easier. So now they have an extension from their wall and their 4-4 point, so we just need to get rid of that enclosure. Right? It's simplified the opening already just by doing the 1-3-3. What they should do is this Joseki, but yes, they're building the left side, and now we have a little bit of extension on the bottom side, so we could do this one. We have the extension with the enclosure if we want to think of it that way. And so they could try to disrupt the bottom side, or they could make sure that this upper right has a specific choice as well. But that is what a lot of the opening is about, is just that preventing and making sure you can try to get certain formations. That's what the opening is about. And the way I like to think of it is 3-4s first, 4-4s next, then 3-4 also includes 5-3 and 5-4. So approaching those is also important, or enclosing those is also important. But then, yeah, 4-4 next, and then it's 4-4 and 3-3 at the same time, basically. And then I like to think of the Joseki follow-ups is what I like to sort of think of next, or Joseki follow-ups. Joseki follow-ups are very simple ideas. The more you know about Joseki, the more you can understand how the follow-ups will work. But like a Joseki follow-up from a 3-4 enclosure is this extension. There's a follow-up. It is as simple as that often. And then if we get to like a more complicated Joseki, like I need white stones here, white and black stones, is like this sort of thing. There's like a normal Joseki here, very, very common. And the follow-up here would be like pushing to try to build the side. Same for white. It'd be pushing this way to try to build the side, build the top side. My ranking of 3-3, but if I have the choice between approaching a 4-4 versus invading at 3-3, do you prefer one? So now that I've been playing quite a while and gotten used to a lot of the 3-3 invasions. I think most of the time I like to approach unless I'm playing a 4-4 opening. Because most of the time I'm playing a 3-4 opening. So I'll play something like this this here. And I'm always going to be doing this first. They're probably going to be doing something to me next, whatever it is. But most of the time, instead of invading like the top left, so let's say this one here, this is like a normal Joseki that happens for me. So instead of invading the top left, I like to approach instead. Because if they pincer to try to get rid of it, then I'm going to get the 3-3 in a large scale. Right, the 3-3 here is actually bigger now. And they still need another move on the top to be an efficient formation. And I can now turn the game into a territorial game. So I like to leave the option open for my opponent often. And then if he decides to just back off or kick is very common for some reason here. If they decide to kick or something, then we can just play on the top side and whatever we want. And now we're building a very large area, right? Now we have this large moyo. So I'm leaving it up to my opponent to decide what they're going to let me have. But if I'm playing all 4-4s, I feel like influence is scarier. Can you make one more example, please? Which do you have a thing in mind? Because we're going to look over some games next, so and we might be able to answer some of these questions. But the other thing I was going to talk about for this, it's not that the corner, it's if they decide to prevent my moyo, then I get a bigger corner. And if they decide not to prevent my moyo, then I can get a moyo. That's sort of what I'm going for. But when I do a double 4-4 opening, this is what I learned from AI, which is why I do it this way. But when I do a double 4-4 and they also have 4-4s, then I like to do 1-3-3 invasion. Because like I mentioned earlier, it makes it easier to decide the direction of play after that, basically. It depends on what they do. So if they block this way, like I mentioned before, they could extend. If they extend, then I know I want to play here next. It really simplifies the game a lot. And then if they leave it alone and they start approaching me instead, then I usually just answer here. Let's just have them play a normal Joseki again. Not that one. I don't want that one. I played that one automatically. Then now I know they have the extension along the top, so I want to get rid of this enclosure here. So it simplifies the game a little bit when I take 1-3-3. That's what I learned from AI. I learned from Golaxy in particular. Katago doesn't really care. You can do whatever you want, but Golaxy thinks this is the better way to play. And after trying it out, this was the way that seemed easier when I had 4-4s. Yeah, not just 1-3-3, but not 2. You can, of course, you can do a lot of other things in the opening. That's what AI has told us. What I look for when I'm setting the opening is what am I the most comfortable with. So I learned 1-3-3, and then approaching the other one is usually okay when I have a 4-4 opening. And it does apply to the other openings too, but I'm always enclosing my corner, so I don't want to take a 3-3 right away anyway. Yeah, 2-3-3s gives you good reduction practice. Yeah. Something like that, yeah. Yeah, 3-3, it can give an efficient formation, but the wall can be weak. It is true. Of course, the old one, yeah, I don't like it as much either, but something that is kind of interesting, let's do this one here, is that we have this here. We'll just play like this. It's a little bit weird, but this sort of formation is surprisingly easy to attack if we get to invade. Surprisingly easy to attack. So it's a really good way to practice attacking, honestly. I didn't think it would be at first, but it is surprising. I guess it's the same even if we don't push here. I just wanted to push. This one, it'd be similar here too. Even if we get this one and this. Surprisingly, this sort of attack is actually really easy. Did white jump too far away? I think AI considers it to be a little bit far away, yeah. I think it's still technically fine. But I actually start thinking recently that this might be too far. Because it's actually more difficult than I thought. So we have to like go to here or something if we want to do an extension of that's a strong extension. But it feels like it's also really slow too, which is why AI leaves it instead. And we just use Joseki knowledge to figure this out instead, right? They do the Hane and this to like change directions and that sort of stuff. But that's all Joseki knowledge related stuff. Yeah, I think that's basically what the opening is, a range of viable options depending on your preference already. And so extensions would be the same. A range of viable options depending on your preference. I think my game versus Ben Kyo, one of the games I played was this one here. He did the 3-3. I did this one. Did he push? I don't think he pushed. I think he did this one, then I did this. And he did some sort of extension here. And I pushed it towards the wall. But he played low, I believe. And I was able to do this nice switching thing here. But he turned it into a fight. So it was this sort of idea. Oh, no, it was high. It was high. It was this way. I remember now. It was this way. Because I played this one. Or something along these lines. And he did this. And this was a really good exchange for me. I remember now. But it was all about personal preference. Like, I could have done an extension instead, but I like the enclosure more. And so I did the enclosure. And then I just had to deal with this fight. And I was actually in a really good position, apparently, with AI. It was nice. But I didn't know much about it at the time. So it wasn't very helpful for me. I think the more Joseki knowledge you have, the easier it is to figure out how to play a lot of opening stuff, honestly. Not just about choosing Joseki, but knowing the options you have available. Right, so if you have a wide range of options, like FishQ said, and it all depends on your preference, but you need to actually study what those options are so you can find out what that preference actually is. Yeah, so let's look at some examples so we can hopefully talk through it a little bit more without getting too distracted with other things. So I want to make sure that I do cover it nicely. So let me actually see here. I don't want to use this Dark Jackal game. I'm going to ignore that one. Don't worry, Dark Jackal. Don't worry, Dark Jackal. We're going to pretend that one didn't exist. I'm just going to go through it real quick just to see which one I like the most. So many options, guys. Why'd you play so many games? I mean, I appreciate it, but why'd you do it? I think I'm going to ignore this other Dark Jackal game, too. What the heck? To get good? Dark Jackal, you got to work on your stuff there. You got to work on your stuff. Just knocking the rust off, I swear. Yeah, I believe you. Don't worry. Don't worry, I believe you. Oh, one of my games looks good. All right, let's see. The Empty Triangle opening was an instant classic. Yeah, that one was pretty good. I gotta be honest, that one was pretty good. Okay, here's a basic one that we can use for a good example to start with. I'm glad I found a basic one. There we go. Basic option. Enclose. There we go. It's like someone just joined. Let me see what's going on here. Yeah, if you did just join, there should be a link to something you can go check out. Demo board should be in the little chat thing or in the lecture talk area. Should be able to find it. Anyway. So yeah, so in this game, Wave Stir. Oh, okay. Hey, what's up? In this game, they approached low here. This was Avidia versus Katie. Yeah, they approached low here, which is something that I suggest for my DDK to SDK series was the kick and jump. Because this is just an easy Joseki to use. And they play high here. And then black does sort of make a mistake right away. They end up playing this top side because they want to extend along the top side and try to make a sort of an efficient formation. They end up doing this to sort of grow this area in a large way. And then they approached. So it looks like black actually ends up being very efficient, but it was sort of because they both kind of made mistakes here. So we're going to look at the actual details of some of these opening things here, but in this particular case, where would you actually want to play here as black? I think there's two really good options here that I would probably consider. D15, yep. C15. Okay, technically three options that I would consider. Those are technically two different ones. I'm going to call that the approach. And R11, yeah. Yeah, that looks good too, yeah. Yeah, as I mentioned, getting this extension feels really, really nice. So this would be a very good option here. Remember, we have this enclosure. We wouldn't mind an extension from it. And so if this extension is also threatening your opponent, then this is often good, even if it's slightly less efficient than it would normally be at the 5 line mark or like R10. So this is a good option here. And then approaching in some way is another good option. So if we approach first, like this one, and we do this basic Joseki, do another extension here, how do we feel about the opening? Where should white play next? R11 wanted by both, so seems important. Yeah, it could work. C8. Yep, that also is good. R12 and S14. S14. Maybe the wrong coordinate. F3 worth or something? Or yeah, wrong coordinate. Yeah. R14. Yeah, so as white, I probably don't want to extend too close to the strong formation. This is some stuff that we learn as we study the opening. This would be playing close to thickness. You usually want to not play close to thickness. Yeah. So R12 would make sense if we're going to play here. We don't want to add another option for our opponent. Something that's cool would be like what hey bye. I'm guessing that's a Meiji, right? This one would be good. This is like a Joseki thing, though. You learn this over time. Like, okay, if we can do this one, this feels pretty good. But we still have a slightly awkward extension here, so maybe we keep pushing or we jump. But would be another option. I think to keep it simple, most of the time it's perfectly good to just do something like this. And then we just move on. But what I'm going to suggest most of the time is that the white stone in the bottom left is kind of surrounded technically. When I say surrounded, it means they can't really extend both sides very easily right now. They can't really extend both sides, yeah. So F3 is sort of the idea. K3? You could do that one, but when I say it's hard to extend on both sides, what I mean is that there's already stones nearby. So when we play anywhere over here, there's already a black stone here, which means that if black wanted to, they could invade very easily. They may not want to, but they do have that option, which means that this formation is not as strong as it could normally be. What I would want most of the time when the white stone in the bottom left can't extend to either side, we really need some sort of enclosure. And this could be similar to what I talked about before. You could go all the way over to here to try to pressure the upper left group. And then if they respond, you can get your enclosure. You could try that as well. But I'm going to say our 4/4 stone is not very happy right now, so we want to do some sort of enclosure. I think that's actually the next important move to play. Because I think this move and this move are kind of like a Mii situation. They're the same type of move, same sort of result that we're both going for. So they're worth about the same amount. Now, I do think black is slightly more efficient, but black got the first move, so they should be slightly more efficient than white. Is the enclosure really worth more than if they had approached and white backed off the other way? Well, when the corner is surrounded, black should play the 3/3 and not approach. Yeah, now it has to have an extension somewhere to be safe. So if we block this way, let's just do this one. Then we extend here. We have this very small extension with this group, and it could be attacked in the future if we're not careful. And if we do the same thing on the other side, same idea. May not even want to do the Hane, by the way, but I'm not going to worry about Joseki stuff too much right now. We have to make some sort of extension to make this group strong, but it can be more likely to be attacked when it only has this sort of extension. Because black's on both sides, right? Black is already has a presence on both sides. That doesn't mean the group is going to die, right? What I'm trying to show you is sort of the basics of how you should be thinking about these opening moves, not what is 100% necessary. Because the move at R12 is still good. That's still not going to lose any points. I think if I use like score estimate here, it probably will not show that much of a difference. So if I score estimate right here, it's a white by 0.7. And if I score estimate with an enclosure, right, it's going to be white by 0.6. So I could probably click it again and get a different score. But yeah. So it's not that big of a difference. It's just a personal preference most of the time. But what I want you to focus on is playing the most basic move. And the most basic move, if your corner can no longer extend along the sides, you need that enclosure with the 4/4. And then I would expect something over here. And if you know the Joseki, you could leave it alone and do this one, and then the game would progress from here. And it's just going to be, normal game. Another score estimate would tell me 0.5 for white. So basically nothing's changed yet. So if we look at the actual game, where they play the wrong side here, the problem was that white wanted to keep building this left side when they didn't need to. And then black was able to get a pretty nice top side with this really nice extension at R11, which is threatening the white group as well. So what white should have done, or the most standard move, is to make sure to just take the enclosure directly. High or low is going to be fine. I like to play high, just personal preference. Isn't this something new in opening theory that you can play, that you can basically play whatever moves make sense and it stays balanced, says AI? Yeah, as long as the move makes sense, it usually will stay balanced, yeah. And that's something we didn't realize before. But it's not really new opening theory. It's just what we didn't realize that it was so open like that. Yeah, sounds like a tautology. Yeah, as long as you're playing moves that make sense, you should be fine. But this move is one that doesn't make as much sense. I don't know if AI will care. Yeah, AI does care. White is ahead by 1 point now instead of just a half a point, which is what it was before. But anyway, so black should just take the extension here, and now white is able to get this extension from the side. Because they needed to save their group on top first as black, and now black's not able to really build in a very large way. So this is actually a really nice, efficient way for white to play. This would have been like a punishment, you could say. You might even be able to go further, right, to the attachment thing. These little details are just, separate, yeah. Yeah, that's what I said. They didn't realize it. That's why I said before they thought it was more restricted, but they didn't realize that so many more moves were better than they thought. Yeah. That's why these are the basics of the opening. Oh, an answer to fish key. Oh, yeah, the tautology. Okay. Yeah, fish key is still the name. Fish key. It's no longer fish coup. It's fish key. I think you've said that a few times. Maybe it's an autocorrect thing. Who knows? K10 opening players are happy with. Yes, exactly. The people who like K10, they're all happy now, for sure. Yeah. So let's look at another basic example here. So I showed you how you punish that one there. The life energy of fish. Yes, fish key. The life energy of fish. I like that. Oh, that's good. Good stuff. Good stuff. So actually, I think this other game here would be another really close to the same type of example. Let me look at this game. Oh, not that. Okay. Really close to the same type of thing, because I encourage people to play certain things, and makes it easier in so many ways. So it was the same sort of opening, and they played low. And then black plays here. White decides not to respond, because you don't have to respond, because you could value something else. And so white actually valued playing on the top side here. And this was Focus Nick versus Scotto. Please change to fish key now. Oh, no. Yeah, this was a Focus Nick versus Scotto. And actually, this move does make sense. So we're saying that the bottom right is not very threatening yet. And so we're doing this. And so black could invade right now. I think that would actually be perfectly fine. But I believe they did not invade right away. They took a different move. But I want to mention this one because you need to choose which thing you think is more important for you. So if you play this one, black is going to be the one who's able to approach the top side and maybe grow this Moyo area on this top side. So if you don't want that to happen, you can do what Focus Nick did here. Yeah, so we're enclosing this way to also threaten to get our extension. Right, so what would you actually want to play here as black? That's a good question. D10. Yeah. D10, C10. Yeah. C6 also works. Yeah. C5. Sure, you can play C5. a little bit close, maybe. K16. C3 and F3. Yeah, I believe in the game, Scotto decided to do... Should have played K10. Yep. Should have played K10. He didn't think it through, but it's fine. So there's two things that I would want to do here. I would either want to disrupt my opponent if I think, okay, I agree that the invasion was not the right timing, and I want to make sure you don't build very much, then I agree with actually playing just like a splitting move here. These splitting moves are just considered slow. They're not considered bad. The AI just considers it to be a slightly slow move. If I use estimate score versus approaching, it's going to be like a 0.1 difference. So not that big of a difference. Very, very slight difference. So I do like this sort of thing. The more modern way to play is to focus on the corner first. So approaching from the inside is a good idea. Because if they pincer, then you get a nice big corner. Make sure I click the correct moves here. You get a nice big corner here, and you can still disrupt the left side if you have to. For example, if they go back and defend this, this is where I would go back and start reducing right away. Reduce right away. Not even approaching or anything, just shoulder hit, reduce, we're finishing the game. Easy. I win. I mean, I'm going to win. Maybe not everyone, but I will. So I think both of those are good options. And then if they back away, we now have this option of just making sure the side is not that big of a deal. So you can actually extend backwards if you want to, or you can try to do a Joseki. Right? It's just up to you. Another, like a modern Joseki idea. I wouldn't necessarily want to approach on the bottom side because I think white is happy to enclose here. So like if we finish this, white's happy to get to that extension first. So I think the two ideas that I would really, really want to focus on is disrupting the left side to prevent that enclosure plus extension, or following up on your threat. Those are the two that I would look at. In the game, I believe Scotto did take the 3-3 point, which allows white to just extend really nicely. I think probably should still Hane. I think I see this sometimes. But yeah, it gives white the option to just extend. And so now they have an enclosure with an extension and a wall next to that extension. So this is actually a very nice formation on the left side. And so if we approach, it's a little bit different, as you saw. And if we disrupt the side, it's a little bit easier to manage overall. And then, as I said, the only other thing I want is to follow up on my threat. Those are the two things that I want. So let's just play the standard variation here. They should usually jump out again. And then if they jump out again, you can go back to the left side. And then if they don't jump out and they take something on the left side, then that means in the future, you can probably attack this middle group. Not right now, but you already got your profit. So we just play a normal game at this point. Like reducing right away. You could now approach here because they already have the extension. You want to get rid of the enclosure. But in the future, you can probably start attacking this middle group. Okay, the long extension after approaching. Yeah. That is something you don't see too often anymore. Yeah, you don't see it too often. But this is something you can do. Instead of the high one, which is very flexible, you can do the low one here because you can still attach underneath to make it a very strong group. And you could also decide to leave that stone alone. But it's like a more flexible, another option for being flexible, basically. And if they kick, you feel good because you have the perfect extension already. Yeah, something cool you can try. But I noticed a lot of our games end up looking very similar because I tell people to play 3/4. So just want to throw that out there. Well, this is another example. This is not from the study group. This is from someone in the study group, but they did post it there. So I will actually show this one. Oh, it looks so much bigger on the other screen. My other screen is bigger. Okay, it's not a big deal, but it ends up being a little bit different. How they actually started it. Okay. It ends up being a little bit different here. Where they extend along this side first. So what would you want to do here? P16? Yeah. O3? E4? Yeah, this is why I wanted to show a couple examples of actual games, because I can't come up with examples too easily. But this is the game of Vidya posted. I think I may have reviewed this one already for the video. Maybe it's been posted. Well, who knows? Yeah, I think there's two moves that I would consider here. Two ideas. I'm going to say two ideas, because technically approach moves can be multiple, but two ideas. Yeah, K16. E4, P16, and wait for them. Yeah, I think the two ideas here, I'll do a 1 and 2, right, are the enclosure on this side and the approach to the 3-4. Remember, even though I said we want to try to prevent the extension with the enclosure, the 3-4 point is still the more important one to go to first. So 1 or 2, high or low, doesn't really matter. 1 or 2 is going to be useful. Like that's going to be the proper efficient move to play first. If we play this one, they should probably also enclose because that's the next sort of efficient move. And then we could go over here and approach. If they decide to enclose their corner first to get that extension plus enclosure, then we can go back over to approaching the bottom left. And now black has technically approached all the 3-4 points and is slightly more efficient than white. But from what we learned about AI, from AI, this isn't like black is getting a huge advantage. This is just a small advantage. And this is really what changed over time, like what Felix was saying. This is really the idea that's changed. We used to think that this was a significant advantage. We just realized that the advantage was not that big. So I think if we just play a move in the center, it's not going to be that much worse than playing like almost any other move nowadays. That's like -1 point in total. But for like Q players and regular Dom players, ones who aren't 9-Dan yet, that's basically the same, honestly. Basically the same. Not that big of a difference. But I still think it's really important to understand this efficiency idea. The 3-4 point comes first, then the 4-4 stuff. And we want those specific formations. Now, here's something that's really nice, though. What would you play here as white? Something you can get that's really nice. We sacrificed the 3-4s in order to get this, so it should be nice. K4, okay. G3, G3 also works, Wavester. G3 also works. Yeah, it seems like you guys all understand. You definitely all understand, yeah. Except for Rex. I'm sorry, Rex. Maybe you're just trying to give another answer. Yeah. R13 is good, by the way. It's actually not that bad. You could do something on the top side if you really wanted to. And Dark Jackal, I know what you're doing. Yeah, just any pincer and extension on the bottom is going to be nice. What are we getting with this pincer and extension? Is we're getting that efficient formation, right? After this, let's just have them answer. Keep it very simple. And let's have them run away. Because they're kind of surrounded. We'll have them run away this way. This looks nicer. This sort of idea. Now white can go back over here. And we have this extremely efficient formation for white. This is actually a really nice and efficient formation. Now, if you want to be a little bit more careful, you can go a little bit closer with this move on the left side. You go a little bit closer if you really want to. If you feel like maybe they could attack or something. But you're much more efficient. So that's what your goal is right now. Instead of just answering the corner in some way, doing a pincer to try to aim for that idea of that efficient formation is the goal. Q9 or N4. As in like the shoulder hits. Yeah, these are still ways to disrupt the area for sure. But this is where we go with the basic ideas, right? So the basic idea, looser pincer is better if wanting to build. Yeah, looser pincer might be better. Depends on what your goal is, yeah. Yeah, so it's pushing here and slide. As long as you know these basic moves for how to follow up, it's always going to be fine. They need to run away. They can't actually run towards your group because it's too strong. And that's actually making them surrounded. So they actually have to run away still. Or even run this direction. But yeah, you don't worry about them disrupting your giant Moyo, like the actual Moyo itself, but the formation is what's efficient. You got all the moves that you wanted to get. If they don't do that, though, like if they play from here, then yeah, we want to keep building. We do keep building from there. But they should try to prevent the building. That is sort of the next step. That's where I feel like a middle game is starting at that point. When we're getting to the shoulder hits to make sure this doesn't grow, that's where I'm starting to see middle game. And even with this one, could actually maybe even attack the stone in a couple different ways. Because this is where white is really strong. So we're usually okay with this. N4 is too much. It's not too much. It's still possible. But I think the other one's easier. This one's a lot easier. Because if we ignore this one and try to attack, you're at least going to connect up to your own stones more easily, right? Because you can run this way to your own area. So easier versus harder. So I wouldn't say too much necessarily. So if we look at this one again here, what actually happened in the game, though, was that they took the 3-3 point, not there. They took the 3-3 point. So which direction should we block is a good question. R4, yeah. Oh, good. Basically, everyone's on the same track. That's good. Yeah, we already have this extension. Q3, then do switcheroo. Yeah. Oh, you weren't on the same page? Oh, that's good. That's good. Faster typists. Yeah, so I would just block this way. This is, as I said, keeping it very basic and simple. There are so many options in the opening, but I'm trying to show you the basic ideas. If we block this way, and we just keep the basic idea going, now we can go back to playing those 3-4 points, right? We can enclose ours, or we can approach this one. But now we have our wall with an extension, and so we feel okay. Yeah, but they came in the wrong area. Now in the game, white blocked this way. And something that you'll notice is that this move here is not as efficient anymore because it's not really doing anything right now. It's not building, and it's also not expanding. Like, not building as in, like, if we still had moves here, maybe we have a giant wall. It's not a very efficient wall because they can just come in and get rid of the wall right away. But we do have a wall. And it's not building anything because there's just no points there. It's just, you could do a 2-space extension, but that's about it. Not much else there. So yeah, not a very efficient move anymore. And then in the game, they just extend along the bottom side. And so now what would you want to play here again? Like, this should be maybe 2 moves you can do. Two moves that are possible here. Even with the R2 continuation, it's not that efficient. Yeah, I can show that in a second here. The R7 looks good. Oh, you can do that. Let me see. Click on a random coordinate. Oh, yeah, you can do that. That's cool. All right, cool. Anyway. You didn't close the upper right. Yeah. R2, I'm not sure about R2, Fishku. But yeah, we'll keep that in mind for the actual continuation for white. Yeah. P16 and E3. So this is why I want to mention it right here. I'm going to consider this extension here to be very similar. This extension, this highlighted circle triangle, to be very similar to an enclosure because you don't want to be attacked. Because if you come in to this area in general, you're likely to be attacked in some way. So I would leave that for later because it has backup now. That's still going to be something to get to, though. It is something to get to. So what I would be looking at, as many people have pointed out already, is the enclosure again. And then the other option. I don't want to do an extension necessarily. I'm going to suggest enclosures first. But this enclosure or this sort of move here, just because we're hurting our opponent's stones. So if he ends up going this direction, then we get to enclose. And now it's just a 2-space extension. We get our enclosure. This is a possible way to play as well. If everyone's playing reasonably. Yep, Dark Jackal. Yeah, D4 would be the nice move in the bottom left. That's the new AI Joseki. And that's what I think we learned a lot from with AI is those fun Josekis. So if white decides to just keep building, well, then we can do the attachment here. We can treat this as the Chinese formation. And then we can go either direction, whichever one works. And now we're attacking the white stone. Yeah. And so just to answer Fishku's question from earlier really quick, even with the other Joseki options here, that R10 stone is not very efficient. So one of the options is to do this one here. Something like this. So the question is, will we want the move at R10 or will we want it somewhere else? Yeah, it seems a little bit close. So it's a little bit far. And so what's one of the follow-ups? One of the follow-ups here is actually this move. And the idea behind this one is that we're usually giving this up. And so now it's definitely too close if we give it up. So now we have to fight instead, which is like we want to do this one or something. We're going to fight here. And the fight actually is a little bit nicer because we have that extension. So it's possible. It's possible, but a little bit close. So then the other option, because black gets to choose some of these, right? The other option could be that black gets to do this one. Yeah, there's this here. And so do we still like this or not? This looks like it's probably okay. So the other one is the one I'd probably play as black. The other option looks a little bit better for black. I think also you can do this one here right away too. And this one, that might be too far now. It looks a little bit nice, but actually also might be too far. Because now maybe black can just try to fight back in this area in the future, right? In the future. It might be easy for them to escape. So just slightly awkward. It's a very slightly awkward pacing or spot. But it doesn't look that bad overall. But it's good to keep in mind that sort of stuff with Joseki things, if you do like that more. So like, which one would you like more? Would you like to do the Joseki or just block this way? Because you still have the option to do that with this one too. You could also switch with this one if you decide that you don't need that stone anymore. And so which one would you rather have? Like, are you okay with this, or are you okay with the other one more? Or even just building the right side instead. It's really good to look at these things, yeah. Yeah, the takeaway is knowing that the switch continuation is a bit is useful in general. Yeah. Knowing your Joseki is actually really useful. It's a little bit annoying that Joseki is actually useful, but it is actually pretty useful. All right. It's a bit annoying. Yeah, release some of the pressure of having to choose 100% early on, yeah. Let me see. Do I want to do another one, or is this going to be good enough for now? If you have any game that you'd want to look at, like if you have a question about one, we could do one last one here. But I think the examples are good enough for now. I always end up making these lectures way too long. It's good, yeah. So the thing that I really, as I said, the thing I really want you to focus on is because I asked too many off-topic questions. No, it's good to ask questions. It is good. That's why I'm going to do a quick overview, right? So the first thing is that the 3-4 point is more important, and there is a order of moves. It is your fault, yeah. There is an order of moves here. We enclose, we extend, then we do the last extension. Right? It's 1, 2, and then 3. We're going to have to use A, B, C for the other one. And for the 4-4 point, we want to usually extend first. This usually involves approaching your opponent's stones. So extend first, then we enclose, then we extend again, and then we take the corner. And so instead of 1, I guess I can add 1, 2, 3 here to this one, but yeah, it's 1, 2, 3 over here, and then A, B, and C. So A, B, C, and then D. Now, there is an order that you kind of want to do it in. Now, A and B are interchangeable as black. So that's something to keep in mind. 3-star opening would also be fine. But I like to either approach my opponent's stone, which is what a lot of the extensions will be. You approach, then you end up being able to pull back later. And then the other option would be trying to build something like the 3-star opening. I definitely consider approaching to be the extending move. It's up to your opponent to make it not an extension by pincering you or trying to do something like that. That is sort of the main difference between how we used to play and how we play now, is that we don't really do the direct extensions anymore. We almost exclusively approach instead. If you very much keep this in mind, you'll always be able to find out where you need to play in the opening. If your opponent has an enclosure, you don't know what to do. Like let's say you're unsure what to do next in the opening. They have an enclosure without an extension, well then take away that extension. If they have like, let's say they have everything except for this number 3 at the top. We can get rid of that. Well, then something that AI showed us was the shoulder hit, right? We play the shoulder hit, it stops them from being able to build on the top side anymore. You could do that for the bottom left as well, technically too. But even just taking this one is going to be fine to do, to make sure they can't build even more. But getting rid of or aiming to get these specific formations is sort of the fight in the opening. That's sort of what you're both trying to do. It may not look as clean as these moves, but that is the goal. Does everything make sense? Do you have any questions about anything? I think we covered everything that I wanted to cover.